This is CHSR 97.9 FM in Fredericton, and you're listening to Python's Paradise, your film and music show. This is DJ Python Hyena, and I am joined, as always,
Shilo Sixx from Film Fantasy. Hello, Peter. It's an honor to speak to you.
Hello. Honored to be spoken to, I guess.
We apologize for the technical difficulties. We've been running around like chickens with their head cut off trying to get... we had some band come in here earlier, and so we apologize for any delays.
No problem. Those darn rock and rollers, those hippies.
Yeah, they look like rock and rollers and hippies for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Peter, the first question I have for you, you reviewed a movie last year, I believe, and I read your review for a great piece of work. I absolutely loved it, but I wanted to get your thoughts on one of the actors that I absolutely can't stand is Kirk Cameron from the movie Saving Christmas. You unfortunately had the displeasure of reviewing this film. How was that?
Well, I mean, the movie is terrible, but I was a little appalled by it because I kind of went into it under a false assumption, because if you saw like the poster and stuff, and I can't imagine any reason why you would, I guess I need to explain the film. It's about Kirk Cameron, basically saving Christmas, from all the heathens and the secular humanists and all that stuff, and getting back to what Christmas is all about, which is. And from the poster, it looks like it's going to be kind of like a comedy about that. So I wasn't expecting like some goofy comedy about some guy who's like caught up in the materialism of the season and learns the true meaning of Christmas, which would probably be a terrible movie anyway, but something you can sort of like rationalize. And it turns out this weird sort of like home movie basically with Kirk Cameron essentially playing himself and his I don't know if it's like his brother-in-law or something like that. He's all bummed out because he thinks that Christmas is getting too materialistic and people are more influenced by gifts and stuff like that. And then basically Kirk Cameron says, "Oh no, shut up! You're wrong. That Christmas, that the true religious meaning of Christmas is all about materialism, about having like the biggest tree and the gaudiest gifts and the biggest ham and my favorite, the richest butter." and the whole movie sort of like justifying like this very bizarre sort of like incredibly materialistic view of the holiday season, and then it's all done like I said, based literally as a whole movie. I mean, it looks like it was may have actually been shot on like a video camera from like 1997 or something like that.
We had the pleasure of talking to Tommy Wiseau on here, and it's interesting how The Room, being branded as a horrible movie, but yet the Tommy and the crew behind that seem to kind of go with that. I would think if Kirk Cameron were smart, rather than go on Rotten Tomatoes and attack the critics on there, why not go with the fact that his movie's horrible and market it based on that? He might actually be to sell his movie better.
Yeah, well, I think he's got a little more of an ego along those lines. So, I mean, if you're going to go on Rotten Tomatoes and accuse all the critics of being rotten, and then trying to like get all your supporters, and the idea that Kirk Cameron has supporters in 2014 or 2015, does kind of boggle the mind.
Very much so.
Have you ever heard of Movie Guide? These are people I can't stand. The Christian film critics. They seem to back Kirk Cameron and all these. They seem to like to slap 4 stars on movies like Fireproof, which was absolute garbage, but yet they will criticize Quentin Tarantino, and they'll want his movies, people sign petitions to have his movies removed because they're too violent. I mean, there's one film critic I can't stand is Ted Baer. And if you've read the review for Monsters Ball, I mean, some of the stuff they said about Roger Ebert was appalling.
Yeah, well, I mean, those. I mean, obviously, they're looking at looking at films from like one very, very specific tunnel vision view, and if it doesn't correlate exactly to that, then they're going to be outraged. And it's really. I mean, I know people who are like very devoutly religious, and still, like one of my best friends is Mormon. Okay,
mm-hmm.
nice guy, and he goes bananas over Quentin Tarantino movies and stuff like that. So I think when you're looking at it from like this one little tunnel vision, point of view, like these people are, you're missing out on a lot. And I mean, Fireproof, from my vague recall, is a terrible movie, but I mean, it's at least a regular terrible movie in many ways, as opposed to like the Saving Christmas thing. Is when I look at that movie, when I look at a movie like that, I'm not looking at it for like whether it jives with any personal belief system I may or may not have. I'm looking at it as whether or not it's a good or competent or interesting movie. So
right, that's me as a film critic.
Yeah, I'm willing to go like with any, because I don't necessarily need to see a movie to that specifically reinforces whatever point of view I have, as long as it's as long as it interests me or entertains me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I come from the Christian faith, but at the same token, I am able to open my mind and look at a movie for what it is, and I don't know, like I find when you start having an agenda like that, like these folks I was talking about, or Kirk Cameron, for example, you really limit yourself, and you really limit your audience.
Exactly. And some of these, I mean, yeah. On the other hand, some of these movies have been, become popular and all that. And I mean, they're kind of terrible movies, but they do, somewhat. That there is clearly an audience out there that wants these, that is looking for a movie along those lines, and that's perfectly fine. I just wish that those people could be better served with a movie that someone can watch and enjoy for reasons other than having your particular point of view reinforced.
Exactly. I think genuine criticism. I've been a film critic since 1997. I think genuine criticism comes from being able to review the movie for what it is, like you said, good, bad. Slapping labels on any sort of criticism doesn't really work for me.
Right.
You work for RogerEbert.com, yes, Peter?
Yes.
Have you ever actually had the pleasure, and I imagine you have, of meeting Roger?
Oh yeah, no. Until he died. I mean, yeah, I've known him for years. I mean, I've been reading him. I've been reading him since like the age of 5. Just 4 or 5. Like I started like reading. Right about the age about the age of 3, I saw my very first movie, which was Dumbo.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
And learned to read, and then we always got the paper, and I'd look at the Sun Times, and I'd look at the paper, and hey, there's movie ads, and then there's people who are writing about movies, and I started reading his stuff there and watching the TV program back when it was still sneak previews and everything.
Oh yes.
And actually when I was like 8 years old, about 7 or 8, that's when I had my first contact with him actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because this movie, The Warriors, came out, the Walter Hill film.
Yeah,
yes, we both reviewed it.
Yeah, which was a great movie. And then, but at the time when it came out, it caused there was this controversy because like gangs were showing up in theaters and picking fights and stabbings and everything. Mm-hmm. And it caused like some brouhaha. And I guess I wrote him a letter, something about I like getting including like notices of violence and ratings or something like that. I don't remember quite the gist of it. And again, I was like 8 years old at the time. And he wrote back and he said that he liked my idea, and he even sent me like passes to some movies and all that. And then eventually years and years later, when I started reviewing movies more or less professionally in college, go to the screening room, and that's where he saw all the movies too. And like years later, I found that letter, and and I showed it to him. I even had like the little ticket still, and he was like kind of like shocked and surprised, and he claimed that he almost never did that with people who wrote in, and I don't think that I have a feeling he probably did that a lot more than he thought he did. But yeah, no, so. So I got to see him all the time at the screening room about that, and then at Ebert Fest I would go down there, and I've been on stage there a few times. So yeah, no, I knew him for a long time.
Roger Ebert is definitely a godfather to me. When I was a kid and I got into the movies, the first movie I saw, one of them was The Lion King in 1994, and I was the kind of person that really wouldn't pay attention in school. All I wanted to do was, write and stuff like that. And I had to develop this general love and passion for the movies at a very, very young age. And, I continued seeing movies on a regular basis. And somewhere around, I think it was 1997, when I became a film critic, I discovered Siskel and Ebert. And there was not once, I believe it was Sunday, where I did not watch that show. And it literally became like a big part of my life to see Roger and Gene, kind of fire back and forth each other about the movies. It was something that became so passionate and a big part of me. I credit both of them for that. And, I look back and I see that, if it wasn't for Roger, we probably wouldn't be doing really what we do.
Oh, definitely. If nothing else, he, in a way, by reading his stuff, reading what he, taught people about film. I mean, in an odd way, he sort of like helped me develop my taste in film. And admittedly, that may not have been something, it may not have something he would want to be particularly proud of, considering my taste in certain movies. But yeah, I mean, I think he did that for a couple of generations, like basically every generation of film critics that have come down since he, became big. Is inevitably, has been inevitably influenced by him in one way or the other.
Did you know both Roger and Gene Siskel?
Well, Siskel was, Siskel was there too. I didn't know him quite as much because he, Ebert was like like a very gregarious type. He'd reach out and he'd talk, he'd talk to you even if, you were just happened to be visiting or something like that. So he's very open to talking to everyone. Whereas Siskel was a little closer to the vest, as it were. A
little more closed off.
I think the only two times I had any sort of conversation with him, there was one time where they had announced the lineup for the Chicago Film Festival one year, and John Boorman was going to be a guest, and they're going to be doing like a little mini festival of John Boorman films, and they were showing like The General, which I think was the movie he was schlepping around at the time, and they're doing like Deliverance and like one or two others. And
not The Exorcist 2.
No, well, that's the thing that I kind of went into like a little bit of outrage by saying that oh great, everyone's seen Deliverance, but I was complaining that they weren't showing Zardoz or Exorcist 2, which are actually movies of John Boorman that I dearly and sincerely love. And I was going off on like some tirade, and then he's just sitting in the back room and he goes, "Only you would want to see Zardoz or Exorcist 2."
Well,
and,
yeah.
So that was like one of the very few times. Yeah, so I mean, he was there and he was fine and everything, but he more kept to himself mostly.
I'd have to say one of my favorite films that I've reviewed from John Boorman was Point Blank from 1967.
That's a great movie too.
Oh,
yeah.
Angie Dickinson, Lee Marvin is a great film. One of my all-time favorites.
Here's a question for
he could. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. You want to finish?
Oh no. No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say, we got the new Star Wars coming out, and would you say that has a major chance of outgrossing Avatar?
I'm not sure. I simply because I think at this point, it's obviously it's going to be a huge movie. But the last couple of Star Wars movies may have dented the impact a little.
Yeah, very much so.
They haven't been that good, and I think and now that there seems to be Star Wars everywhere now, I think that may have sort of lessened it a little. I mean, it's still going to be a monstrous hit. Whether it's going to be the all-time biggest movie, my guess is probably not. But I mean, it's still going to be a huge film.
Yeah, it'll cross the $1 billion mark.
And without Lucas, it might even have a chance of being tolerable for once. So
well, I think it'll be the highest grossing film of the year. Don't you think?
Possibly. I mean, right now it's like what, the Avengers? I think
the Avengers.
Yeah, 1.3 billion for the Avengers
worldwide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'll if it's not the biggest of the year, I mean, it'll definitely be like top 2 or 3, depending on how much the Jurassic Park and that does.
Have you seen Jurassic World yet, Peter?
Yeah, it's it's kind of awful.
You know what? I didn't mind certain aspects of it. You know, a lot of it was, you know, a cash grab. I guess some of it was a little bit of a nostalgia, but there's a real feel to the real Jaws feel to the film too. You know, if you really want to analyze it, there's a real Jaws feel to it, and it kind of feels like 40 years of nostalgia from Steven Spielberg.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like one of the problems. I mean, there's just nothing particularly fresh to it. I mean, I will admittedly, I should probably, preface by saying I've never been like the hugest fan of the Jurassic Park franchise. I mean, the only one of the movies I've completely liked, of course, is perversely the one that everyone else seems to hate, which is Lost World.
I hated it.
I did too.
And I love that movie because it's kind of silly and it's kind of junky, but it's got like some great set pieces like the big attack scene with the where they're trapped in the car with the cracking windshield, and like the attack on San Diego at the end. I mean, those are just some like incredibly well done things. And like the first Jurassic Park, I mean, not my cup of tea. Not necessarily a great movie, basically because you don't see Richard Attenborough get eaten by a dinosaur. But I mean, there was at least at that time there was still like this sort of like a little bit of a sense of wonder. I mean, this is like one of those great special effects breakthroughs and all that. I mean, you just didn't see that, but now like 20 odd years later, I mean, you're getting like these elaborate blockbuster event movies like every week or two, and as a result, even something a movie like Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, just doesn't bring anything new or fresh to the table. Because I mean, it's sort of like the running joke in the film about the perils of doing the bigger, just going for bigger and better. But the problem is that it starts off as sort of like a satire on that mindset, and then it just kind of like succumbs to it at a certain point.
Well, there were certain aspects of the film that I found were a little far-fetched. Him being able to control the dinosaurs, that sort of thing. I found that was a little far-fetched, even though they tried to spin it.
I'm willing to, some of that I'm okay with, because I mean, if you're going to sit there and go with watch a movie where they brought dinosaurs back to life, you've got to give it a little bit in certain other areas. But like the whole Bryce Dallas Howard character, that whole aspect is just kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, like Kate Capshaw in Temple of Doom was slightly more rounded out than her. Like her just like screaming and running through the jungle in heels and everything. It's just it just added like this weirdly unpleasant
unwanted romance
to the whole movie.
Unwanted romance aspect.
I didn't even necessarily mind the unwanted romance, but it just had like this weirdly sort of like misogynistic tone that she's like this big competent woman, but because she doesn't have a husband and kids, she's somehow some failure. Like there's that one scene where she's talking on the phone with her sister, and her sister like basically practically shames her for not having kids and all that. And I just wanted her to say, Hey, Toots, the reason your kids are down here is because you're out getting a divorce.
Yes.
And that was just like the weirdest, most unpleasant scene in the whole thing. And then also the one scene where the other major female character in the film meets her her demise.
Yeah, I remember that. I know which one you're talking about.
And that's just, and that part is really weird too, because I mean, this woman, all she does basically is her job. I mean, she's not particularly mean or anything like that. And frankly, the kids that she's supposed to be following around are obnoxious little twerps.
Yeah.
But then she's got this death scene that goes on for so long, and it's so nasty that if it had been Charles Manson who was undergoing it, you'd be thinking it was a little excessive.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That I didn't see that coming, and when it did happen, I wondered why. It's almost like they just threw her in there just to have a death sequence.
Yeah, but I mean, and again, I don't, and that's not necessarily a problem. But if you're going to do something like that, you've got to make that character into someone really hateful or really obnoxious. Like,
yes.
Like in the first movie where you have the the guy sitting on the toilet and getting chomped to bits like that, but you don't do that to some minor character who hasn't done anything to anyone. Just have them be just like horribly savage beyond.
Right, I agree with you on that for sure.
Yeah, it's just a whole bunch of that movie just didn't really work for me.
One of the movies I'm really looking forward to seeing this year is The Hateful Eight. I love Quentin Tarantino.
Same here.
And I'm so excited he's got Jennifer Jason Leigh in this movie. I hope finally she'll get an Oscar nomination, because I think she's been long overdue. But are you looking forward to this?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'm always down for a Tarantino movie. I like the fact that he's shooting in 70 millimeters.
Yeah.
So, so that that'll be great. And of course, that mustache of Kurt Russell is sporting. Oh my God, that is a thing of beauty.
What's your take, Peter, on this whole world with the digital age? Digital movies, 35 millimeter film. I kind of find this whole high definition era with HD and digital theaters and stuff like that. I kind of find it going out of style.
Well, the digital thing. I mean, on one hand, it's a good thing because it makes the tools of filmmaking available to more people at a lower cost than than like 35 millimeter that you had to do back in the day. So on the one hand, that sort of works, but on the other hand, that means that because more people are making movies, doesn't necessarily mean that they're making better movies. Because now you get like a whole bunch of terrible vanity projects that anyone can just put out now because the means of production and to a certain extent distribution are much easier now thanks to digital. The other problem is that it all looks good for now, but the thing is that digital is not really a medium that works well in terms of archiving. So there may be a point where like older movies, as long as they've been taken care of, you've got like these 35 millimeter negatives that you can hold on to and you can make new prints off of. But these that have been done entirely digital, then they don't have any negative like that. If they these files get corrupted somehow, no more movie. And if the medium shifts, if you were trying like transferring your own files from one computer to another and had trouble with that, just try imagining doing that with like feature films. So that's kind of a worrisome thing for me. I mean, if I had my choice between seeing 35 millimeter or seeing something digital, I mean, I'd go 35 millimeter all the time because. But I'm not like one. I'm not like when people say, "Oh, digital is the worst thing in the world." But because there are certain advantages to it, and also with distribution too. I mean, it makes things a little easier because you don't have to like ship like these heavy film cans. You can just like send like the DCP or whatever. But I think that a lot of people just kind of like leapt into it without thinking things through entirely in terms of, like I said, in terms of like archiving and all that. And I fear that at some point down the line, that's going to cause a big problem with a lot of films.
Well, you see, I miss, one of my all-time favorite films is American Beauty. Anybody who knows me knows that.
I love it too.
This is one of my all-time favorite films. And I saw it back in, I think it was October '99.
I saw that 4 times.
I saw it 4 times as well. And I missed seeing I remember seeing the negative and the grain and everything on the screen. I missed that aspect completely for film now. And, American Beauty is going to be re-released for its 20th anniversary in 2019. And it's going to be really strange to see it on the big screen, I think, in high definition. I remember seeing it with grain and, green scratches, 35 millimeter film. And I just really missed that aspect.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, still, there's still places where they're sadly dwindling. I remember a couple of years ago I was helping put together a film festival out here, and one of our great big coups that came at the very last second was we were having William Friedkin come in as one of our guests.
Oh, he's terrific.
So of course we want to show William Friedkin film, and like the dream was for me at least to show Sorcerer, which is like his for me at least his greatest film, but like one not particularly easy to come by. And then finally, literally at the last second, we've been like bouncing back and forth with studios for like a couple of weeks, and finally at the last possible second, we got a hold of the last single playable 35 millimeter print of Sorcerer. We got a hold of it so we could show it at our festival. And and then we're all excited, we're all giddy, we're all thrilled, and then I suddenly say, can the theater show a 35 millimeter print? Because most of these theaters now only are equipped for digital, and
right.
We just have like this one moment of horror. Oh my God! And I mean, luckily they had like one theater in the building, in the complex was equipped for 35 millimeter, so we were able to do that. But it was just like, oh my God, just like the fact, like a lot of these places can't play 35, even if they wanted to, is kind of terrifying.
You know, it's funny. You mentioned William Friedkin. I was just watching the French Connection the other night, one of the all-time great action movies, and of course The Exorcist. I saw that 5 times in the theater. Friedkin, in his commentary tracks, he's very well spoken, very clear.
Yeah, no, he's quite good. Don't mention Exorcist 2 to him, as I learned. But if you go on, and if you go on YouTube, you can find this, because we did like this. So we showed Sorcerer, and I did like this Q&A with him on stage afterwards, and I just asked him kind of like, because someone brought up The Exorcist, and then I just kind of said, by the way, did you ever see Exorcist 2? Just out of curiosity, if nothing else, and go on YouTube, try to find that. His answer will amuse you greatly.
I can just imagine what his answer is. William Friedkin is very adamant with spoken dialogue. My favorite film with him, there's 2 of them actually, is one's To Live and Die in L.A. from 85, excuse me, and the other one is The Hunted from 2003.
Yeah, Hunted is a pretty good movie.
Hunted was
he's done a lot of fantastic movies.
Yeah, Hunted was absolutely fantastic. You got 2 world-class actors in the film with immense dialogue, great structure, and it's all about the battle of survival.
Yeah, but no, for me, Sorcerer is my favorite, because it's one of my all-time favorite movies. Cruising's a really good movie.
I liked Cruising, yeah.
Cruising, that's the one about
Al Pacino.
Yeah.
He's done the last couple of movies he's done. Have been like theatrical adaptations of Bug and Killer Joe. They're both really good, really dark movies.
I've reviewed Killer Joe. Killer Joe was quite an interesting picture.
Finger looking good.
Yes, and bones and all, if you get my drift from the film. Yeah, it was a pretty twisted and entertaining film, I will give it that. Sorry to Gina Gershon, though.
It's been...
She's young, she's strong, she could handle it.
Oh, yeah, she took it.
It's been 4 years since I've given a 0 to 10 to a movie. I think in 2011 I gave it to Shark Night 3D, and I just gave one out this week to Aloha, which I thought was a horrible movie. And it's sad when you look at Cameron Crowe's resume. He's a terrific director, and it's like, what happened?
See, I guess I'm alone on this one too, but I actually liked Aloha. I mean, it's not Cameron Crowe's best movie, but I mean, I just admit up front that I'm a huge Cameron Crowe fan.
Yeah, we both are.
I raved about Elizabethtown even, so that's.
I liked Elizabethtown.
I liked Elizabethtown. I thought it was great.
But Aloha, I mean, Aloha. Admittedly, it's kind of a mess. I mean, the story takes kind of like forever to start, to get started, and then doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. And the Bradley Cooper character is probably like the least appealing main character that Crowe has ever had in a movie. But still, it's got like a lot of great individual scenes. Some of the performances are really good. I think Rachel McAdams is really good in it. I like Emma Stone, even though she may not. I guess she's not Hawaiian enough
or Chinese.
I want to comment. I'm a huge Emma Stone fan. I've loved her ever since Superbad. Always liked her. She's kind of my Hollywood crush. And I think her only crime with this movie is that she's not Chinese or Hawaiian, and I guess Cameron Crowe's apologizing for casting her.
Yeah, I read that yesterday.
It's kind of sad. She's getting criticism, and she's probably brought more to the movie than that whatever that was John Krasinski was doing with the silent treatment and talking.
Yeah. See, the thing with the Emma Stone that has been blown way out of proportion. Because the problem was that. Long before the movie came out, everyone was like, putting out criticism about saying that, there's nothing but white people in this movie, and how dare you make a movie about Hawaii and not deal with, the actual natives. You're only dealing with white people and that. And then when they saw the movie and they realized that that's not the case, because they do deal a lot with the Hawaii and the people and their conflicts with the annexation by the United States. They do deal with that a lot in the film. But the only thing that could really continue their complaint on is the fact that Emma Stone is playing a character that's supposed to be 1/4 Hawaiian and clearly does not necessarily look like that. And the problem with that is not so much that you have her playing that role, as much as the fact that, you know, one of her character's quirks is that she's always constantly reminding people that she's 1/4 Hawaiian. So every time she says that in the film, and she says it at least 6 or 7 times, all you can do at that point is just think, well, no, you don't look 1/4 Hawaiian. So it just keeps, you know, with that decision, it just kind of like reinforces in your mind that she's not necessarily right for the part from a physical standpoint. And so it kind of, you know, it weirdly works against the film that way. But beyond that, I mean, I really think Aloha is a movie that's just gotten like this bum rep. I mean, every once in a while, like a movie comes out and everyone just decides to sort of like dogpile on it. And I mean, this has been and between the delay in the release and the fact that this is one of the movies that when that Sony email hack came out, there was like, you know, notes from like the head of Sony criticizing the film and all that. So basically people are going with their knives out on that one long before it hit theaters. And I think like once everything calms down and people decide to look at it, you know, afresh in a couple of years, I mean, they will be wondering why people are so enraged by it. I mean, you know, it's not a great movie, but Lord knows there are worse movies out there now than that one by far.
You know something, though? I think Emma Stone's one of the better young actresses out there, too. I hope this does not damage her any, because I think she's so good.
No, I won't damage her. No, she's got too much hype about her for everything else she's done.
She got an Oscar nomination for Birdman. I enjoyed Birdman very much.
Birdman's a masterpiece.
Loved it.
You know, I think
the only person who's going to get hurt by this at all is Cameron Crowe. Just might make it a little more difficult for him to do another, because he basically does like his own sort of like, you know, personal thing. So he may wind up having to make like another film like a Vanilla Sky or something like that. That's not necessarily, you know, like a completely homegrown original thing of his to, you know, sort of like get back on track. But other than that, I don't think anyone's going to get hurt by that one, by it particularly. I mean, it wasn't even that hugely expensive, so it's not like this massive box office flop even. It's just that everyone decided to gang up on that movie, and I think for kind of unfair reasons.
Well, you see, Peter, I had this movie in my head back when it was originally titled Deep Tiki sometime last year there, and I had been waiting for the film since then. And as we were getting the film at our local cinema here, where we review the movies, I was very excited for it. And I walked into it without any thought in my head about the Sony hack. I didn't know anything about it. And when I sat down and watched it, it just felt like Bradley Cooper's character was the same old cliche of a guy who's busted and broken. You know Emma Stone's going to fix him. And everybody else just seemed like they were waterboarded over everything.
Well, I thought was the worst.
Like in that whole sequence where he tears the head off the...
Well, the words appearing on the screen to describe how you feel, that was embarrassing.
Yeah, like I said, it's not. It's easily the weakest film Crowe has ever has made to date. I mean, I don't deny that, and it is a deeply flawed film, and it's not necessarily. I would not say it's not one of my favorites of his, but I still think that in that one, the stuff that I like. I mean, like I said, some of the performances, some of the the individual scenes. Again, a nice music score. And just like the general, I just kind of like the fact that it wasn't a movie that required like some giant behemoth to explode or stomp on the premises every 5 minutes. So, I like it. It's not great, but I don't think it deserves anywhere near the sort of taunting it's been getting from people.
You already mentioned the Sony hack. What did you think about the situation last year with The Interview? I think that Sony made the wrong decision. I want to know what you thought of that.
I think actually Sony may have made the right decision because by pulling it and then bringing it back like on video and then putting it out in theaters and sort of like positioning it as like see this movie and stick up for freedom in the American way. I think they got a lot more people than they would have if it had just come out as it is and everyone realizes it was a terrible, terrible movie. So basically, I think that frankly, I think they lucked out significantly on that one because The Interview is not a good. It's a really bad movie. I mean, I was kind of like shocked by how not funny it was, and I think by positioning it sort of like do the, watch this and you're a true American, and you believe in freedom. I think they caught it right. I mean, basically watching the interview was kind of like, 20 years ago going out and buying your Two Live Crew albums. And when was the last time you listened to one of your Two Live Crew albums?
I reviewed the interview here, and, I agree with you. I think them pulling it was the right decision, but it also felt like a huge publicity stunt when they did, because 3 or 4 days later, they released it on VOD, and then they released it on DVD like 2 months later. It felt like this whole thing felt like a huge publicity stunt, and then they come back and say, we wonder if there was actually people out there that were threatening to do all this and we're actually going to go through with it. And, it just felt like hype just to get the movie out there because of what it's about. And, I reviewed the film myself. I marginally passed it. It wasn't really the greatest for me, but, I laughed at a little bit at it. But the idea that this film is about freedom, the whole thing that's surrounding it, I think was a little more bugged out than it was made to be.
I don't know. I found it very much to be kind of a satire on it. A little bit vulgar, yes, but I mean, you kind of expect that out of a Seth Rogen movie.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't put off by the vulgarity at all. I have no problem with that. I was just put off by the fact that it wasn't funny. I mean, doing a film. I mean, they're trying to make it sound like, they're making fun of Kim Jong Un, and oh my gosh, how Gary and radical they're making fun of like this sitting leader. And I mean, that's been done before. I mean, To Be or Not to Be, they it was a movie that was making fun of Hitler and the Nazis during, acting when Hitler and the Nazis were at their apex, or the Great Dictator to a slightly lesser extent. But the thing is, those movies last not because they were timely and topical, but because they were well written and very funny and all that, and they still resonate today. The Three Stooges did stuff like made fun of Hitler and a couple of things too. So the whole idea of like doing a film taking on like a real real world despot is not necessarily a new and original thing. But my problem is the fact that what they did. I mean, the idea of the film is interesting and potentially amusing, but it just doesn't go anywhere. It's just not funny at all. I mean, it began to remind me more of something like that Uwe Ball's Postal than anything else. At a certain point.
What did you think of Uwe Ball's latest rant?
Well,
I can't honestly. I can't stand Uwe Boll. I can't.
Yeah, well, I mean, his movies are terrible. I mean, obviously his movies are terrible, and when I would do 10 worst films of the year when he had a movie out, I wouldn't even bother including them just because it just seemed like unfair. Because he's just working with like whatever shekels he can get together, and whatever days Michael Paré is free. I mean, I did interview him once, and I was actually what was like I think Blood Rain 3. I actually interviewed Uwe Ball just simply because it was offered to me, and that's the kind of thing you don't want to pass up if you got the opportunity. And I mean, he clearly knows that he's not he's to a certain extent this is kind of like a theater kind of thing for him. So he's just basically doing it to get publicity, that sort of thing for like publicity for himself. On the other hand, he may have been kind of amused because I think the same day I watched the video Blood Rain was the same day I saw like Transformers 3, I think it was. And Transformers 3 is just like one of the most punishingly bad movies ever. Whereas Blood Rain whereas Blood Rain 3 was just kind of dopey. And I made the comment that I think that if I had to be totally honest, and someone sat me down and said you could only watch one of these movies right now, which would it be? I would have picked Blood Rain 3 because it's stupid, but at least it doesn't hurt you.
We can't stand Michael Bay.
Yeah, I mean, he made a couple of good movies, early. I mean, because like The Rock is
The Rock's
The
not
Rock
bad.
is decent, and Bad Boys was decent.
The Island I liked. I even didn't mind Pain and Gain.
I know, like the Rock I like, and I will admit, I did at the time, and I probably haven't seen it all the way through since, but I did kind of like Armageddon at the time, just simply because it's like the dumbest movie ever made, but at least that one was sort of like, aware that it was the dumbest movie
Yeah,
ever
and it
made.
had the special effects to it that boosted the film too. But that's all the film was special effects.
Pearl
special
Harbor
effects.
was garbage.
Yeah.
Right. But no, I think everything else since then that he's made has been, atrocious.
Yeah, like I don't get it. It goes to the Wachowskis with Jupiter Ascending. The movie was made for millions, and I think I gave the film 1 star. I couldn't get past how dumb the characters came off as, and how bland the script was, and what's his name, Channing Tatum rolling around on moon boots. Like, it just seemed like the film was all jammed together into one setting. And Eddie Redmayne's performance after The Theory of Everything,
after winning an Oscar.
I couldn't believe how terrible his performance was. I don't know where any of that money went.
Yeah, no, Redmayne's terrible. Yeah, I now Jupiter Ascending, I do admit that I have a little bit of affection for, just because it is, kind of like what I said with Armageddon. I mean, it's a very, very silly movie. But for what I don't know, for whatever reason, when I watch that movie, its silliness is kind of like hit me hit me the right way. I mean, if you're ever going to see movies like, Channing Tatum in weirdo moon boots as a half dog, as a sort of like, half dog alien flying over Chicago blowing crap up. I mean, that's the movie. And I'm not always a fan of the Wachowskis. I'd rather stick needles in my eye than sit through like Cloud Atlas or
Speed Racer.
But Jupiter Ascending, I kind of had a little bit of fun with. I mean, it was kind of like someone trying to do like a Terry Gilliam film and not quite getting it, or not quite getting Terry Gilliam, but still coming up with something somewhat entertaining in the end. It obviously I know it's a very dumb movie, but for something to sit down for like 2 hours and watch a bunch of nonsense. I mean, I prefer it that I would prefer that over, I don't know, like several of the Star Wars sequels, for God's sake, or I prefer that to like the last couple of Star Trek movies.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
I
sure.
love Terry Gilliam. I like how you brought him up because
he's in the movie. He's actually in the movie at one point. I'm trying to remember who he. But I think he actually crops up for like a minute. Like he has like this little cameo in it, which kind of.
In Jupiter Ascending?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember because I haven't seen it since it came out. So, but he's got like a very brief cameo. I think he's on the alien world at one point. I think he's like an advisor or something like that. I can't remember. But as I recall, he's got like this little brief appearance in it.
Okay, I'm just wondering, Peter, what were some of your favorite movies so far this year? I know we're only halfway through, but you must have some mid-year favorites.
Fury Road is pretty much a masterpiece.
It was a masterpiece.
Great movie, loved it.
I think I'm telling out tales out of school on that one. Next week, the movie Inside Out comes out, and that's a great one too.
You've seen it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Looking forward to it. I love Pixar.
Pixar's been kind of, for me at least, it's been kind of whipping it for the last few years.
Okay, yeah.
Because, it's like Brave, for me, didn't quite work.
Oh, I wasn't a fan of Brave either. It just didn't look like Pixar. Looked more Disney.
Cars 2 is terrible, and Monsters University is terrible. So, I mean, they've been like on a cold streak since Toy Story 3. But I would say that Inside Out is probably like one of the 2 or 3 best films they've ever done.
What are some of the worst films you've seen this year? We've got lots.
Oh, we do.
Entourage is.
Are you kidding me? I loved it. Just saw it last night. I loved it.
I didn't.
God. I'm trying to Ray. You're talking about 35mm film. I'm trying to start a telethon to have that movie transferred to dangerously unstable nitrate stock.
Why didn't you like it?
Great. It's not funny. It's just
Kevin Dillon was funny.
No, he's not funny.
Well, you know what really was even worse? Jennifer Lopez ripping us off in The Boy Next Door.
Yeah, you got to admit that was junk.
Oh no! That's a terrible movie too. But at least that one you can at least laugh at. like when like the now infamous first edition of the Odyssey, which is my favorite part in that movie. I think maybe my favorite part in any movie yet, this year. Like, oh yeah, first edition of the Odyssey, which would have been like written like on papyrus or something like that, 6 million years ago.
And my two favorite movies this year have to be so far, of course, Fury Road and Ex Machina.
Ex Machina is an excellent movie.
Ex Machina was a masterpiece. I saw it 4 times.
Yeah, I saw that a couple of times too. Yeah.
Eberfest. When is that going on next year? It's going on in Chicago, eh?
It goes on in Urbana, Illinois, which is where Champaign and Urbana, where he's from.
Right.
It usually ends. It's usually like it's somewhere in like the last week or 2 of April.
Okay. I actually. Oh, sorry, Peter.
Oh no, the thing. So this year's happened about a month and a half ago. So yes, it's generally like the last week or 2 of April.
Are you there every year at Eberfest?
I'm there. Yeah, I'm there pretty much every year. Sometimes I'm a guest, then sometimes I'm there just to go for the movies and all that.
I plan on attending Eberfest next year. It would be an honor to meet you there.
Sure. I'll be the guy, yakking about movies.
And that's been me for 18 years.
Yeah, I'm up on him by 1 year. We both Shilo and I met because we both loved the movie Bad Words.
Yeah, that was our claim to fame.
We went, and that's how we met. And I've been doing this show for 10 years, and I invited him on here. We do kind of a Siskel and Ebert thing. And did you like Bad Words? Jason Bateman.
The one without Bateman, yeah. Not that much. That was one of those where I thought it was trying a little too hard at times to do a lot of things. It was trying too hard to be outrageous, and then it was trying a little too hard to be, kind of sentimental towards the end. It just didn't quite work. I mean, I don't hate it or anything. It's not like Entourage bad or anything like that, but it just, whatever it was, it just didn't quite work for me.
I don't know. We're off the page on Entourage. I actually had a lot of fun watching that last night. I don't get it. I enjoyed Haley Joel Osment, and I enjoyed Kevin Dillon in it.
I actually haven't got a chance to review it yet, so I'm kind of on the fence about this. And I ran into this problem this year. There was a film that just drugged so bad, and I wasted 2 hours of my life that I won't get back. And I guess that's the joys of being a movie critic, which is always a pleasure, a passion, and fun. But it was Hot Tub Time Machine 2. It got a 0 from me.
I never seen that.
I hated it so much. It actually, made me sit back for a couple of days and realize, what the hell am I doing? I wasted my time so much with it, Peter.
That one was pretty hard to get through, yeah.
Yeah, it was extremely hard, and it made me contemplate a couple things, and, I guess I got over it, but the film was just absolutely terrible, and it made me realize, 2015, here we are, it's not 1999 anymore. 2015, we're heading into sequels, remakes, reboots, more sequels, and it just seems to be the way it seems to be where film is headed nowadays.
Well, kind of, yeah. And especially when, and then if you try to do something, that isn't specifically one of those things, there's an excellent chance you're going to get hammered, as we just talked about with Aloha. But it's not necessarily the fact that they're sequels and remakes and all that. It's the fact that they're bad ones. I mean, obviously, Mad Max is a sequel, and I guess technically a reboot as well.
That was great, yeah.
But regardless, that's a great movie because the guy who made that movie, George Miller, took the time, to make a really great movie, and I think it's probably might be the best of all the Mad Max movies.
I agree.
But the problem is that a lot of people who are doing these things, like the remakes and the sequels and retreads and all that, aren't doing them necessarily for any particular driving artistic reason. It's just the fact that it's a familiar name, and you might get people to show up on the opening week, which is why you get something like the Poltergeist remake.
Oh, it was garbage.
Which is just a really terrible movie.
Yeah, it was garbage.
Well, that's one of the great things, like I liked Entourage, you didn't. It's kind of nice, like we both respect each other. Like I've read your stuff, and I agree with your views, and I can have a disagreement with another critic, and And that was always, like, even with Roger Ebert, I disagreed with him on certain movies. Like, he didn't like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and I loved it, you know, but I still respect him, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's like Blue Velvet. He gave a bad review.
Oh, yeah.
He gave it 1 star.
Right, but the difference is that, you know, a lot of people when they write bad reviews, it's like, oh, this movie sucks. Oh, this movie is the worst. Oh, yuck. But, you know, like with Ebert writing about Blue Velvet, and I've actually written about this. The thing is that, I read the review and I disagree with everything he says about, I don't agree with his view on the movie.
I am the same boat as you, Peter.
But what he writes about the movie, he did write about the movie, was, intelligent and reasonable enough that it actually did have me think, start to think, about, that he, in certain ways he has made, like, specific invalid points. It's not just random, oh, this movie sucks. I mean, he's actually put thought into it. And while I disagree with, the end result of his thoughts, I'm glad that, he took the time to do that. And I like, being able to see, like, this other perspective that I disagree with, but I can still respect because it's reasoned and well thought out, as opposed to a lot of the, what passes for criticism today, where it's just kind of like everyone doing, like, immediate sort of, like, jump reactions and just, try to get, like, online and say, oh, this movie bites, or, oh, this movie is the greatest thing ever, without, like, putting any real thought into what they're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have a problem with, like, me and Python have argued over films kind of in the same sense there a couple times, and we've disagreed and agreed on certain films. But, like, there was someone online, and it's funny to me how I think they're called bloggers or something like that. They are able to go on certain websites and write generally whatever they want. And there's this one person who had literally smashed American Beauty. Literally shambled the film in his review or whatever the hell it was. Nothing touched on the subject of the film at all, and it was him making fun of it, and it infuriated me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just, when people just kind of like go out there and rant. I mean, I'm not admittedly, I'm not a much of a fan of American Beauty, but that happened the second time I saw it.
Okay.
It was the weirdest thing because a lot of times I'll get asked, well, do you ever change your mind on a movie review? Does your opinion change? And actually, with me, American Beauty was kind of like the weird sort of example of that because the first time I saw it was whenever they press screened it, and and it's slick and it's well done. The performances are good, and like the dialogue is poppy and everything, and I liked it. And I didn't think it was as great as some people were saying, but it was perfect. And I think at that point I'd also been watching like a bunch of really bad, lazy movies in a row. So the fact that it was something different, because until that movie came out, no one really knew what the hell it even was.
No, nobody did at all. Especially when they saw the ending. They're, huh? What? I saw it in a full packed house.
Even the trailers didn't really give like any sort of indication of what the movie was. So I think so all that going in. So I kind of enjoyed it. And then like a few months later, it's about to win the Oscars and all that. And I'm asked to someone was doing like a screening of the film, and they wanted to have someone to introduce it and lead a discussion about it afterwards. And they asked me if I'd do it. And I said, yeah, what the hell. And I went, and I hadn't seen it since then. So I go, and I bring a friend, and we go, and because she hadn't seen it. And I'm watching the movie, and I'm suddenly realizing everything that rang true the first time around was now, for whatever reason, just ringing false with me.
Mm-hmm.
It just, the whole thing just started seeming, the second time around, just started seeming like very, arch and very contrived and everything. And I realized, oh my God, I now have to get up there and lead a discussion on this movie, and it's now not a very good movie at all. And the conversation went kind of weird at that point, once I got up there. But when other people rave about it, I'm perfectly, I have no problem with that because, I see where they're coming from, and at least with the good reviewers. But yeah, no, there's a lot of times people just want to they're more impressed with the idea of getting the first opinion out there than in getting the first reasoned opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what the problem is a lot. That's one of the big problems for film criticism now. They have people rushing out there trying wanting to get the first shot out there. instead of taking the time to really know what they're trying to say.
Yeah, and that's me and all my reviews there at www.filmfantasy.co. Genuine criticism comes from the mind and actually the film itself, not whether it sucks because her performance was bad. People don't want to see; they want to know why.
Yeah, I'll admit I'm guilty of making the occasional glib joke and something like that, like in or glib joke or 12 in a review, or even on Facebook, coming home from the screening or something like that. But I like to think, and rightly or wrongly, that I then try to construct a review that explains where I'm coming from in a little more detail than so it's not just a bunch of glib jokes strung together. And and occasionally I suppose I fail. That's usually with the movies that are just so boring and so nondescript that there's nothing else you can do. I mean, the idea of trying to apply rational thought to something like Unfriended is just too depressing to contemplate, and that's when you just kind of crank out the bad jokes, and and I'm not necessarily proud of that. But I suppose that even the good critics do kind of come to that once in a while.
Is there any films that you're anticipating here in the near future?
Well, obviously Hateful Eight.
Spectre. Spectre. The new James Bond. I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, I love the guy Christoph Waltz playing the villain.
Well, you see, when they announced the thing, all I heard was Monica Bellucci and Léa Seydoux, and then everything else is kind of faded in the woodwork. So I'm hoping it's just going to be like a $150 million version of Blue is the Warmest Color. But
we've both reviewed Blue is the Warmest Color here down in Canada. That was I'm originally from a province called Quebec. It's about quite a few hours away from here. Blue is the Warmest Color was quite an interesting picture, especially from a French perspective.
Yeah, I liked it too. Yeah,
it was a good film.
I mean, that was my favorite movie of 2013, I think, was when it came out. That was my favorite movie of that
That's
year.
when I reviewed it. I reviewed it at one of the cinemas in the French version. I speak English and French. I reviewed it in the French versions out in one of the theaters in Montreal. There, they had a press screening for it, and it was a very good film.
Well, we're coming down on the hour mark, and we just want to say it was an honor to talk to you.
Oh,
and,
Peter, this was an absolute honor to speak to you. You're obviously been doing film criticism a lot longer than me, so you're one of the few greats that I look up to. As kind of the godfather of film criticism, much like Roger.
I'll take that. Can't be right, but I'll take it. I'll take that compliment.
I'll take it as you will. It's exactly what it is.
Well, thank you very much.
We just want to give you warm greetings from here in Fredericton, New Brunswick. If you're ever down in Canada this way, drop by and see us here at CHSR, and we got the Silver Wave Film Festival. It comes up in November. We celebrate Canadian film.
Yeah. If I ever manage to slip past the border, sure.
Yeah, that would be interesting, and I do look forward to Eberfest next year. It's going to be a lot of fun. Do you ever go to the Toronto International Film Festival?
Not really. I tend to be one of those people who doesn't travel very well, so I sometimes cover a little bit in the sense that I'll get the screeners and that sent to me. I just have never quite. I mean, one of these days I'm going to get up there. I just have never actually made it up there.
Well, I'll be going to it this year.
Yeah, there was one year where I was actually just about to go, and then something came up at the last second that ensured that I couldn't get up there for it. But one of these years I will. So the thing for me, the thing is that about a month after the Toronto Film Festival is when the Chicago Film Festival is. So a lot of the major movies that are playing at Toronto will be playing in Chicago, in the next month or so, either at the festival or just theatrical. So it's not like I'm in a place where I'm not going to have access to a lot of these films. So I've never felt that much the real urge, just simply because I know I'm going to be seeing a lot of these things later on. But one of these years I am going to get up there.
Oh, that would be absolutely great.
Well, we bid you good luck in the future. We appreciate chatting about films with you. It was an honor to talk to you.
I have one last question for you, Peter. What year did you start film criticism?
Probably, well, technically when I was like about 5 years old, but I would say for real, I started in college probably in 89.
89.
But I mean, I've been doing it like, I'd been doing it like, like high school papers and just for my own personal amusement long before that. But I think that was the first time when I started getting money for it.
Nice.
Well, we bid you good luck and thank you so much for talking to us. Maybe we'll chat again sometime in the future.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, nice talking to you guys.
Yeah, it was great to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Have yourself a good evening.
Bye-bye.
You too. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.